Hey, hello everybody. My name is Ryan Kaminski. I am the playwright of today's play, The Guilty. I'm excited to be working with Jayo Theater again, and I hope you all enjoy today's performance.
Hi, my name is Anne Youm, and I will be playing Claire Cameron.
Hey, hello everybody. My name is Ryan Kaminski. I am the playwright of The Guilty. I'm excited to be working with Jayo Theater again, and I hope you all enjoy today's performance.
Hi, I'm Karen Fleming, and I'll be playing Diana Fulton.
Hi, I'm Emmanuel Catalan, and I'll be playing Josh King.
Hi, my name is Ron Ward, and I will be playing Phil Harrison.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Elisabeth, and I'll be playing Rachel Harrison.
Hi, I'm Malane Silver, and I'll be playing the narrator. Guilty by Ryan Kaminski.
Good morning. My name is Phil Harrison. I'm the brother of Trish Harrison, who was one of Andrew Murphy's victims. Trish was my big sister, sister-in-law to my wife Rachel, and aunt to my now 5-year-old son Luke. In addition to holding all of these titles, Trish also held the unofficial title of being my personal rock. She earned this title shortly after our father passed away when I was 13. With our father gone and our mother in a deep depression, the odds were certainly stacked against my sister. Despite this, Trish overcame the odds, became a parent-like figure to me, and helped me through what I thought was the darkest period of my life. From that moment on, my sister was all about helping others, an attribute she passed on to me. And when I was deciding on a career, she encouraged me to become a police officer so I could give back to my community and help those less fortunate, as she had done in her career as a hospital nurse. While on duty on the evening of April 6th of last year, I received a call that a woman had been found on the side of a park trail, half naked and bleeding from multiple stab wounds. Little did I know that when I arrived on the scene, the victim would be Trish. Before I could fully register what had happened, my sister died in my arms. My uniform was soaked with her blood. Although I have cleaned my uniform countless times since that night, I still expect to find drops of her blood on it. My sister loved going on evening jogs before her shift at the local university hospital began, citing that the evening air helped clear her head. Little did she know that on the evening of April 6th, she would cross paths with a monster named Andrew Murphy, who had attempted to abduct her for no other reason than to satisfy his inhumane desire to torture and kill. And when she fought back, like the fighter that she was, Murphy mercilessly stabbed her right then and there. I am still in pain over her senseless and heartbreaking loss. It pains me to know that she will no longer be there when my wife and I celebrate our anniversaries. It pains me to know that she will never attend another one of my son's birthday parties. It pains me to know that she will never see the full extent of the positive impact she made on so many people. But what pains me most of all is knowing that my sister, the woman who dedicated her life to saving lives, is buried in the ground while her murderer, who dedicated his life to taking lives, is still breathing the same air that Trish gasps for in her final moments. If you do, in fact, receive the death penalty, the only pain I will feel is knowing that you'll only be able to receive it once. For if you were to receive it a dozen times, it still wouldn't come close to do what you did to Trish, to me, to my family, and to the other individuals here today. If I were the kind of man who still believed in God, I would ask him to have mercy on your soul. But I know it would be useless because such a thing, such as vile, evil, perverted, and sick, and twisted as yourself, has no soul to begin with. Should this court of law, the same court that I have sworn to uphold as a police officer, decides to sentence you to death, rest assured I will be present at the execution. I will be there, which means the memory of my sister, the same woman you killed, will be there too. We will both be there as you take your final breaths and the world finally becomes free of your miserable existence.
Just wanted to let you know we got here. He's doing okay. The best he can. Listen, this won't be over until after midnight, so I'll say goodnight now. Get some rest, okay? I love you too. Good night.
Who's that?
Luke, I was just letting him know we got here, okay? This place is even grimmer than I expected. I didn't think that was possible.
Are we seriously the first ones here?
Well, it is only... Hang on.
Why do you insist on relying on that beat up old thing for the time? Why don't you just check your phone screen like a normal person?
Because it was a gift from my mother, Phil. And anyway, it still works. Most of the time. Here we go. It is 10:50.
All right.
Huh. No wonder we're the only ones here. I'm surprised the guard let us in this early.
Well, from what I read, most states allow you to come in anywhere from 2 hours to half an hour before it begins. So I'd say we made pretty good time. I mean, besides, it's a good thing we left when we did, given the interstate was. Still can't believe it. I mean, pave it now? Well, at this hour?
Well, they're certainly not going to pave it during rush hour.
I know, but you mean to tell me they just had to do it tonight of all nights? I mean, do they know what's happening?
I'm pretty sure everyone knows what's happening.
Exactly my point. So why put obstacles in the way to stop people from getting here? At least it didn't stop any of the news vans. Saw a couple of them getting set up on the way in.
I never understood why they do that. What's the point in the media coming out in droves like this?
Maybe because this is news. I mean, when I say news, I mean real news. I'm not some biased opinion of some idiot reading a teleprompter.
But it's not like they're going to be bringing cameras in here and providing live coverage. So why come out here in the first place? Why not just report about it tomorrow morning?
Because it's not happening tomorrow morning. It's happening tonight. Regardless, if they bring cameras in here or not, they have an obligation to tell everyone the moment it happens. Given the way that Murphy terrorized the public, they have the right to know when he is finally executed.
Do you think the reporters will go around asking attendees questions when it's all over?
Well, I'm sure they will.
I just hope they don't go asking me anything on our way out.
Well, they very well might if we're the only ones here tonight.
I was afraid of that. Oh, well, where do you want to sit? We've certainly got our fair share of picks.
Oh, there's good.
He takes a seat in one of the chairs in the front row. Rachel sits beside him.
Is there something wrong?
I just didn't expect to sit so close.
Relax. It's not like we're sitting in the front row of one of those plays you dragged me to. We're not in risk of getting actors spit on us. There's going to be a sheet of glass between us and him when they open the curtain.
I'm fully aware this isn't a Broadway show. Thank you very much. Still, I didn't think we'd be front and center when it happens.
Nobody else was taking these seats, so I figured, why not? I just can't believe it. What road work? It's like I tell Luke all the time. You got to have common sense.
You know, I really hate it when you tell him that.
Why?
Because you make him sound like he's an idiot.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do. Every mistake he makes around the house, you gotta have common sense. Everything he does wrong in school, you gotta have common sense. You even lectured him about common sense when he got emotional over getting cut from the team.
He is 15 now. At this point, he should know you can't get up breaking down over every little thing that doesn't go your way in life. Hell, if I had that attitude in my job, I'd never go to get out of bed in the morning.
Getting cut from the team wasn't a little thing. Not to him.
You want to raise a son who can't control his feelings? Or you want to raise a son who always needs a minute? People in the adult world don't care about your feelings, and life doesn't pause because you need a minute. And when you start accepting that, that's when you get the common sense I've been talking about. I know I've said this before, but I am still disappointed. He should have come with us tonight.
It was his decision. Besides, he has a big test in school tomorrow.
Oh, please. I told him it was okay for him to miss school. I mean, when was the hell the last time he ever turned out a chance to stay home from school?
We're not talking about blowing off school to go to a theme park. We're talking about... Never mind.
You make it sound like we're going to be watching a public hanging or watching someone getting fried in the electric chair. No, we can't do those things anymore because they're not humane. All that's going to happen tonight is someone's going to go to sleep. No, he sees more violent stuff in all those video games he plays and the movies he watches.
It's still an execution, Phil. A real-life execution.
Yeah, Rachel, the execution of a real-life serial killer. And when he talked to you about not wanting to come tonight, what exactly did he say?
He just said he didn't want to come.
I'm not buying it. Knowing him, he probably thinks what's going to happen tonight is wrong. Am I right?
He never actually said whether he thought tonight was right or wrong. In fact, when I asked him what he thought about the execution, he said, given how horrible his aunt's death was, the idea of her killer just going to sleep didn't seem all that bad in comparison.
Really? Luke? Our Luke said that? Always knew the kid had common sense. Always.
He then went on to say, it would be better if the man who killed his aunt just rotted away in prison.
I see. All right, never mind then.
You know, this is a very crucial age for him.
Oh.
This is the age where you start questioning things and start forming your own opinions. I see it every day.
Please, please. Today's generation doesn't form their own opinions. All they do is repeat whatever the teachers and the professors tell them in the classroom. We don't have learning institutions anymore. They're indoctrination centers.
There's no indoctrination on my end. In my classroom, I let my students think for themselves. And whenever an issue like this comes up, I let them talk it out. And I've seen both sides make excellent points.
So, did Luke make any excellent points as to why he feels the way that he does? Did he explain why it would be better for a punishment for someone like Andrew Murphy to spend the rest of his life in prison as opposed to dying?
He said that anyone who could go around killing people like that had to have had a horrible existence to begin with. He said a person like that would want to die, and that it would be a greater punishment to keep them alive in prison.
If convicted serial killers and murderers want to die, then I say, let them.
When I brought up that counter-argument, Luke said, "We're letting them win when we do that."
Where the hell does he get this crap? When you win at something, you're happy. You're triumphant. Can you be happy and triumphant after you've been executed? No, you can't be anything because you're dead.
I'm just telling you what he said.
And I'm telling you, what he said doesn't make any sense. Right, apply this logic to any other situation in life. Say two of your students, they get in a fist fight in the hallway, and then they say, "Yeah, we deserve to be punished. We want to be punished." Is the administration, what, they say, well, they want to be punished, so we can't punish them?
We're not talking about high school kids in this scenario. We're talking about convicted criminals.
It doesn't make a difference what we're talking about. We don't just change punishments because the person receiving them favors one over the other. Anyway, none of this applies to this situation. I mean, do you remember Murphy begged for his life at his last appeal? Did you tell Luke that?
No. The less he knows about this whole ordeal, the better.
You were not doing him any favors by sheltering him, Rachel. The real world is always going to be there.
And Luke will be facing it soon enough. He'll be an official adult before we know it.
Adulthood's got nothing to do with age. Hell, I was more of an adult at 13 than most of the adults out there. And I think I will have a talk with him about all of this tomorrow. It's important he gets the facts about tonight's right away.
And tell me, when was the last time you talked with him?
What are you talking about? I talk to him all the time.
I've seen you give him plenty of lectures, but I can't remember the last time the two of you sat down and had a thorough conversation.
Yeah. I talk to him, all right? He tells me everything.
If he tells you everything, then why didn't he tell you how he felt about tonight? He told me.
Because maybe he prefers to be babied by someone rather than have someone give it to him straight. That's his whole generation in a nutshell, Rachel. I tell you, I don't know what happened.
Well, maybe you should ask yourself why this generation is the way it is. After all, it's your generation, our generation, that raised them.
Come on. You got to admit it, though. There's a different world out there nowadays. It's got a hell of a lot worse since we were kids.
In some ways, yes, but in other ways, the world's gotten better. Hopefully it keeps making progress, and by the time Luke's our age, the good will outweigh the bad.
I doubt it.
Always the pessimist, aren't you? That glass is never going to be half full with you, will it?
I'm just saying, I don't think it's enough time for things to turn around.
It is scary how quickly time goes by, isn't it? My mom always said your life starts going by faster once you get out of high school. I never believed her at the time, but looking back, it's scary how right she was.
No, it's funny. When you want things to go by slowly, they speed up. And then when you want things to speed up, they go by slowly.
What do you mean?
It's like tonight, for instance. To tell you the truth, I never thought it would come.
I know. 7 years.
7 years? Well, what are you talking about? It's been 10.
That can't be right. Are you sure it's been a decade?
Trust me, it's been 10 years since the sentencing. 11 if you start counting when Trish was first killed. In 10 years, Murphy's been sitting on death row. That is 10 years worth of meals, of exercise, of books to read. What I wouldn't give to have just 10 more minutes with Trish. You know, she wanted to take Luke to that water park on his 4th birthday. But I told her no, he was too young. And if it hadn't been for me, Luke would have had more happy memories with her.
Come on, Phil. You had no way of knowing what was going to happen. None of us did, even in our darkest nightmares.
Yeah, still, but I should have jumped at the opportunity. Growing up, Trish would always tell me that life was a series of opportunities, and if you didn't jump on them right away, then they just pass you by. God, I miss her.
I miss her too. Not a day goes by where I don't think about her. It's all right. It's all right.
No. I can't go breaking down Claire gets here. I need to be strong for her.
There's nothing wrong with getting emotional over Trish, especially tonight.
I just wouldn't feel right doing it in front of Claire. I mean, given what she went through, what she experienced.
Well, Claire's not the only one to go through a lot. What about you? What about Diana? I mean, my God, you can't possibly tell me that someone like Diana didn't go through a lot.
Hey, I never said that. I've had my differences with her, but I would never try to downplay what she went through. I'm just saying it's different for Claire. For Claire, it wasn't her sister or a daughter or a loved one. It was her. Just her. Yeah, I remember she was only a couple of years older than Luke is now when the sentencing happened. Here she was, this young kid who had been forced to grow up way too soon. A young kid who had every shred of her innocence ripped from her in a matter of seconds. And despite that, paper shaking in her hand, despite every eye in the courtroom concentrating on her, she went up there and she started to talk.
Good morning. My name is Claire Cameron. Before I get started, I wanted to thank everyone for granting me the opportunity to speak here today. I especially wanted to thank the family members of the other victims for coming out here as well. Phil, Diana, your strength gives me strength, and I'm forever grateful for it. As a theater major in college with a concentration in acting, I never thought I would need strength to get up in front of an audience. But then again, I never thought what happened to me in late December of last year would ever happen. As a theater major, I've acted in several college productions, many of which have been starring roles. Yet no role has been more challenging for me to play than the role of Andrew Murphy's victim. Unlike the roles I've played in college, this isn't a role I auditioned for. It's not a role I had time to rehearse for. And it's not a role that will go away when I change my clothes or take off my makeup. It's a role I've been forced to play, and it's a role that's very real. On the evening of December 22nd, some friends invited me to join them at a local nightclub to celebrate the end of the semester. Given I had a lot of packing to do and had just been dumped by my boyfriend a few days prior, I really wasn't in the mood to go out and celebrate anything. But after much persistence, my friends finally convinced me it would be good to go out and take my mind off things. As soon as we arrived in the club, I immediately found myself regretting my decision. My single friends in the group were asked to dance right away, and my friends in the group already in relationships wouldn't stop talking about their upcoming Christmas plans with their boyfriends. I felt alone, rejected, and in desperate need of attention. That was when a man finally approached me. He was sweet, good looking, flirtatious, and above all, seemed like a genuinely nice and caring person. The man's name was Andrew Murphy. And he presented himself as the kind of man I had always hoped for. After a few glasses of wine and a few deep conversations, he said he wanted to get to know me better and asked if I would be interested in going back to his place. Under normal circumstances, I would have said no. But I was tired of being miserable and alone. I was ready to take a chance if it meant I could have what my friends had. Growing up, my mother would always tell me that all it took was a matter of seconds for your life to change for the worst. My younger self, my more innocent self, ignored her words as just more of her bitter ramblings. But on that night, I was about to find out just how true her bitter ramblings actually were. As soon as I walked through the door of Andrew Murphy's home, it became clear to me something was wrong. I attempted to leave, but he was quick to attack me. He knocked me to the floor, bound my hands and feet in rope, hurled me over his shoulder, and carried me down to his basement, or as he liked to call it, his dungeon. There, he threw me onto the cold, hard floor and began to show me how interested he was in getting to know me. I spent the next 3 nights chained to the wall in his dungeon, where I existed for one purpose and one purpose only: to satisfy his demented wish to gain power over another person through acts of violence and unspeakable cruelty. The days were long, the nights were cold, and the only thought running through my head was how to prepare myself for what kind of torture was going to take place next. Throughout my 3-day ordeal, Murphy threatened to kill me multiple times, and on more than one occasion, I wish he had. I welcomed death because I knew dying wouldn't be as bad as what he was doing to me. When dying, I would finally be able to escape. Instead, my escape came on the early hours of Christmas morning, when law enforcement finally arrived, arrested Murphy, and unchained my arms and legs for the first time in days. For as long as I live, I will never be able to figure out what horrified the officers more: the sight of my appearance after 3 days in captivity, or the fact that a human being could do to another human being what Andrew Murphy did to me.
Claire sets down paper and addresses Andrew Murphy.
A year after you held me captive as your prisoner, I can say in confidence all my physical injuries have healed. But what you did to me goes beyond anything you can see on the surface. Beyond the surface, you robbed me of my decency. You robbed me of my self-worth. And you robbed me of the trust I once had in people. Because of you, I now find myself raising my guard every time a man smiles at me, flirts with me, or says he finds me interesting. You deprive me of experiencing the joy in these things so many men and women take for granted. For that alone, it is enough for me to hate you for the rest of my life. As I still tried to explain to myself the senselessness of what happened, I find myself drawing an endless string of blanks. What I want more than anything now is closure. Closure to what happened to me and closure to the fact that you've escaped justice for so long. For as long as the world is filled with monsters like you, I will keep drawing blanks. And I will keep missing the opportunity to get the closure I so desperately want.
That's why I need to stay strong for her. As hard as it'll be for me to see Murphy again, I can only imagine how hard it will be for her.
Maybe she won't come. She has been trying to move on from all of this for the past decade.
No, she'll come. She made it clear to me on the last appeal that she wants see this whole thing through. I mean, she's not going to run and hide from it now. When was the last time you heard from her?
About 1.5 years ago. She was living out in Seattle with her boyfriend at the time.
Nick was his name, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
I called her apartment again on her birthday, but by then another couple had moved in.
Did you try her cell?
She never gave me her cell number. I meant to ask her for it last time we spoke, but I forgot. It's funny, isn't it? We get so caught up in our own lives that when it comes to others, simple things like getting a cell phone number tend to slip our minds.
Well, it's a two-way street, though. I mean, you can't do all the work all the time. Can't always be the one reaching out.
I know. But sometimes you need to go the extra mile for certain people.
Is she on social media?
No. I looked for her on there, even searched her under Nick's last name in case they got married, but nothing. I imagine going on social media must be rough for her. Seems like everybody on it is gloating all the time.
Well, at least she has somebody now. I mean, if anyone in this world deserves happiness, it's her.
I couldn't agree with you more. Claire!
I'm Rachel.
We were just talking about you. It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you too. Good to see the both of you. Hi, Phil.
Hey, Claire. I knew you'd be here. I just knew you'd make it.
For a while, it didn't look like I was going to. I hit a lot of road work on the way over.
Yeah, tell me about it. Our tax dollars at work, right?
Did you fly in?
I did. I usually don't do well with planes, especially given how claustrophobic they've become, but there was no way I'd be able to make the drive all the way out here.
I tried calling you around your birthday, but I was told you moved out. Are you still in Seattle?
No, I'm in Las Vegas now.
Oh, wow. For how long?
For about 1 year. I had decided a while back that it was time for a fresh start.
How's Nick liking Vegas? He looked like the gambling type. I'm sure he's been cleaning out all those casinos.
Actually, Nick's still in Seattle.
Huh.
We split up.
Oh, Claire, I'm so sorry. When?
A little over 1 year ago.
You should have called. We could have talked.
The breakup happened around the anniversary of Trisha's death. It didn't seem like the right time to reach out. I imagine you had a lot to deal with.
You could have called, Claire, really. It would have been fine.
Diana still doesn't know, though, so if she comes tonight, I'd appreciate it if you didn't tell her.
Of course.
Hopefully she won't come. I mean, maybe she's got another thrilling Bible study to go to or something.
Phil?
What? We're all friends here.
I don't mind her coming. What I do mind is how she gets invested in everyone's business. That's why I don't want her to know anything about Nick. Last thing I need tonight is a lecture on how I should feel about the whole thing.
Trust me, I want to avoid another lecture, another Diana lecture, just as much as you do. Don't worry, I'll be between just the three of us.
Thank you. Anyway, how have you been? Still on the force?
Yeah? It'll be 20 years next month.
Wow, that's amazing. And what about you, Rachel? Still teaching?
Yes, but I'm at the high school level now. I'm actually teaching at the same high school where Luke goes.
Wow, he's in high school already.
I know. Tell me about it.
He liking it?
He likes it a lot. He's a sophomore, so he's already thinking about colleges. It's a very exciting time for him.
Luke's thinking about colleges?
Yeah. He said he's going to make a list of his top choices soon.
Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. Kid needs help focusing on simple homework assignments, much less deciding where he wants to spend 4 years of his life.
He's got plenty of time to come to a decision.
It's not that. He just seems to have his head in the clouds most of the time. I really don't know what to do about it.
I wouldn't worry if I were you. Sounds like he's at the age where he can afford to take it easy and not worry about anything.
Not really when you think about it. I mean, I was looking over some of his homework before we left and... Oh, crap.
What is it?
I just remember that and after I went back in to get the GPS, I don't think I closed the garage door on the way out. Do you think that Luke had enough sense to check it before going to bed?
I don't know. Why don't you call him?
No, I will in a bit.
Call him now. It's only 11:10. We've got plenty of time.
All right, yeah. But if anyone else shows up while I'm gone, make sure they don't take our seats.
So, how's work going on your end, Claire? Still working as a social worker?
Actually, no. I work as a cashier at one of the casinos in Vegas now.
Oh, that's different.
Don't get me wrong, I love being a social worker and all, but sometimes the fresh start, you need to change things up. I could always get back into social work someday, though.
I hope you do. As someone who's worked with kids from broken homes, I know there are a lot of kids there who would benefit from someone like you in their lives.
There's always someone out there who needs help, isn't there? One of the few constant things in life. That and the fact that things are always changing.
Change can be good, though.
It can. Depends on the day, I suppose.
I know I haven't done the best job keeping in touch, but if you ever want to talk, whether it's tonight or after this whole thing is over, I'm here for you. Whether it's a call, a text, a message on social media, whatever.
I appreciate it.
We have a few minutes now if you want to talk about Nick or... I'm sorry. I've just been trying to take my mind off things since Phil and I got here. Being here has made me very uneasy.
Why?
Because of what's going to happen? Because we're just waiting around like this when... Like I said, I didn't mean to intrude or force you to talk about anything you don't want to talk about.
I wish I had this big, exciting story to share with you, but it just fell apart between me and Nick. It fell apart like all the others.
Believe me, before I met Phil, I was there plenty of times.
I keep telling myself what happened to me all those years ago doesn't define who I am. I keep telling myself I'm a strong person and I could keep moving forward. So if I can keep telling myself those things, if I can keep moving forward, if I can keep on being strong, then why is no one else strong enough to move forward with me?
Oh, Claire, there are people strong enough. You just need to find them.
I really thought Nick was one of them. He was there for me whenever I had one of my bad days. But eventually I had too many Bad days for even someone like him to handle.
It's his fault for it falling apart then, not yours.
I thought so too at first. But then I thought about how my mom would always blame my dad for everything that went wrong in her life. Looking back, none of it was true. She drove him away and she couldn't accept that.
Well, in your case, it is true. You're not your mother. Anyway, it's all in the past now.
I know. But if I've learned anything, it's that sometimes what happens in the past refuses to stay there.
Garage door is shut now. You know, he answered right away when I called. I thought he'd be fast asleep by now, but whatever. At least he hasn't burned the house down. So, what's the scene like out there? News vans were just getting set up when Rachel and I got there.
Oh, they're completely set up now. Some are already broadcasting.
Broadcasting what?
A bunch of people were gathered on the front lawn holding up signs. News stations were filming them.
Of course they were. Media can't help themselves whenever there's a protest nowadays, no matter how stupid it is. Hell, you know, most of the time, protesters don't even know what the hell they're protesting.
The people I saw weren't protesters. The signs they were holding up said things like "Justice is served," "Good riddance," and "Bring back old Sparky."
Wait, really?
Yeah, some were even singing. To tell you the truth, it sounded livelier than New Year's in Vegas.
That's unbelievable.
It sure is. Looks like I'll have to call Luke again.
Why? I thought he just shut the garage door.
I'm not talking about the garage door. I'm talking about the party that's going on out there. I want him to know that we're going to be late getting home now.
Wait, are you telling me you want to join those people out there? You want to join their celebration?
Just for a little bit. I mean, but I was thinking the three of us could take him out for drinks. You know, there's a nice bar. I saw a nice one on the way over.
Do you even hear yourself right now? Partying, having drinks. A person is dying tonight, Phil. A human being is about to be killed. Whether you're in favor of what's going to happen tonight or against it, there's nothing, absolutely nothing to celebrate.
All right, let's make one thing clear. They're not bringing out a human being tonight. They're bringing out an animal. A diseased, rabid animal who's been a poison to society since the day he was born. That alone is something to be happy about.
To feel relief over this is one thing, but to feel happiness? That's another thing altogether.
They go hand in hand as far as I'm concerned.
Claire, you agree with me on this, right? You of all people know it's wrong to celebrate human suffering.
It depends on who's suffering, Rachel.
What?
Did you forget who they're bringing out here?
You know damn well I haven't forgotten.
Then what's the problem? Why do you feel uneasy?
Because none of this feels right to me. What's going to happen tonight won't change the past. It's not going to bring back what each of us lost.
You're right, it won't. But it will give us closure. And after 10 years, finally getting closure feels right.
But do the means in which you're about to receive closure make you feel happy? I mean, to the point where you're celebrating and singing songs in front of the camera happy?
I don't know what I feel, to be honest. All I know is tonight's been a long time coming, and the thought of it finally happening puts me at ease. After 10 years of waiting, how could it not?
Rachel, you want to get upset over someone? Why don't you get upset over your sister-in-law? Because unlike Andrew Murphy, Trish wasn't executed for committing a crime. She was executed for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. She's the one who had her life stolen away. She's the victim in this, and she's the only one I care about. And it's funny how you don't.
How on earth could you say something like that? You know how much I loved Trish.
Then doesn't her murderer deserve to pay? Doesn't he deserve to pay for all the pain he has caused us?
I'm just saying There are a variety of ways a person can pay for their crimes.
Oh, Jesus Christ! What? You've been talking to Diana, haven't you?
What? Is that what you think?
Then where's all this crap coming from?
It's coming from me, Phil. It's coming from me looking at this issue from all sides.
There is no issue here. The only sides are the side of the guilty and the side of the innocent. I sure as hell know which side I'm on.
Claire, don't you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying that when you look at this without bias.
Not biased, Rachel. As much as I hate to admit it, I'm a victim in this. And given Phil's your husband and Trish was your sister-in-law, you're a victim in this too, whether you like it or not.
And so is Diana, even though you'd never know it. Rachel, you know, you've been sounding like her since we got here.
I have not, and you know it.
You remember her victim impact statement, don't you? What, Claire?
Of course. It was right after we delivered ours.
Which made it even worse. I remember being angry after you delivered yours. But I was angry for the right reasons. As for Diana's, victim impact speech made me angry too, but it was for all the wrong reasons. It started off so promising, so very much like yours and mine, and it went straight to hell from there.
Diana Fulton reads from a piece of paper.
Good afternoon. My name is Diana Fulton. I'm the mother of Melanie Fulton, who was one of Andrew Murphy's victims. Before I begin, I just want to thank everyone for being here today, especially my sister Emma. Your love for me, and especially your love for Melanie, have helped me in ways I'll never be able to describe. From the moment my daughter Melanie entered this world, from the moment she left it, her life was filled with love and joy. She came into my life 2 years after I'd had a miscarriage and was told by the doctors I wouldn't be able to get pregnant again. Melanie's father, my late husband Sam, worked as a Presbyterian minister and would often bring up Melanie's birth any time one of our parishioners questioned whether miracles still happened. For many, including my sister Emma, Melanie was living proof that miracles weren't just things that happened in Bible stories, but rather, miracles are things that can happen to any of us at any given moment. Given her willingness to help others, her extensive charity work, and her strong Christian faith, it was no surprise when Melanie announced she wanted to become a minister like her father. Despite the financial situation at home, my daughter was determined to get into the university of her dreams. And after a lot of hard work, she found her prayers were answered. As a firm believer of the phrase, God helps those that help themselves, she started working nights as a waitress while devoting her days to her studies. My husband and I had our fair share of concerns regarding the late hours Melanie worked, but our daughter wouldn't let any worry, no matter how big, stop her from doing what had to be done. As Melanie began her walk to her car in the early morning hours of February 9th of last year, she spotted a man with a cast on his leg, struggling to get some supplies into his car. A good Samaritan in every sense of the word, Melanie stopped to help, only to discover that the man was just pretending to have a broken leg in order to lure potential victims into his vehicle. That man was Andrew Murphy. And after abducting Melanie, he brought her back to his home and held her captive for 3 days. Melanie's body was later found in a wooded area several miles from the university. the same university she was set to graduate from in 2 months' time. 2 weeks after her death, my husband, who had already been battling a weak heart, suffered a massive heart attack and passed away.
Diana sets down paper and addresses Andrew Murphy.
Since you took my daughter from me, I've been faced with a lot of uncertainty regarding my identity as a Christian. As a Christian, I've been told to love my neighbor and pray for my enemy. Things that seem so simple when read out of the Bible, but now seem so difficult when applied to real life. I think of all the people here who hated you, and how for the longest time I found myself hating you as well. But whenever I find myself tempted by feelings of hatred, I think of the Lord's Prayer, which states, "Lead us not into temptation." I also think of Melanie and how she approached life, and I realized she would not spend 1 second giving in to hatred. I think of her selfless attitude, the same selfless attitude that made her want to help you that night. And I know that hatred is wrong. It is wrong for us to hate you, no matter what you've done. That is why, as a Christian, as the wife of a late minister, and the mother of a late aspiring minister, I forgive you. I forgive you for what you've done to me and my family. And I ask my sister and the family members of your other victims to do the same, no matter how challenging it may be. Grief is a journey, and like any journey, it is filled with difficulties. We all now face our fair share of difficulties thanks to you. But no task is as difficult as the task you now face. For you now face the difficult task of getting God to forgive you. One looks at your crimes. It may seem impossible for you to achieve this. But as a Christian, I can tell you it's not. For no crime, no matter how senseless, no matter how hurtful, is truly unforgivable. That is why I pray that this court of law spare you from the death penalty. If you are spared, you will be granted the opportunity to spend the rest of your life earning forgiveness and redemption. If you are spared, you will be given the opportunity to reflect on your sins and realize the error of your ways. If you are spared, you too can eventually earn God's forgiveness. Until then, I will pray for the souls of my husband and daughter. I will pray for my sister and for your other victims and their families. And last but not least, I will pray for you too. I will pray for your soul, no matter how challenging it may be, in hope that one day you receive redemption. Thank you.
Prayer and forgiveness. The animal abducts, tortures, and murders her daughter. And what does Diana talk about in the statement? Prayer and forgiveness.
When she first brought up the idea of prayer, I figured she was going to get into how Melanie's prayers weren't answered. Never did I think she would take things into direction she did.
It was her statement, though. You two made it perfectly clear how you felt in yours. Diana had the same right, no matter how much you might have disagreed with her.
Oh, come on now. She made it sound like Murphy stirred her daughter up for a date, for Christ's sake.
Again, it was her statement. I still don't see why you continue to make it your business.
Well, because she made it my business. And she made it Claire's business. She dragged us into this by making it seem like she was speaking on our behalf when she did anything but. Then again, you'd know all about speaking on someone's behalf, wouldn't you?
What is that supposed to mean, Phil?
I'm talking about how you've been speaking on Murphy's behalf since we got here.
What? I have not.
Oh, please. Let's talk about all the times you've gotten angry at me so far tonight. Let's talk about all the times you've gotten angry at him. Face it, you've been angry at your own husband than you have been at a serial killer.
That is not true, and you know it. I'm not out for blood like you are, but that doesn't mean I'm speaking on Murphy's behalf.
Oh, like hell. And the thing that hurts me the most about tonight is that I needed you. I needed you to be here for me, but instead all you've done is spew kumbaya nonsense.
Just because we're not on the same page with certain things, that doesn't mean that I can't be here for you.
Not on the same page? Huh. So you officially admit that you're against what's going to happen tonight then?
I'm not officially admitting anything. Like Claire, I want closure. But given the circumstances, I just don't think I'll get it, is all.
Who's the pessimist now?
What exactly do you want from me, Phil? Do you want me to just agree with everything you say, or do you want me to not talk to you at all? Do you want me to be like Luke? Will that make you happy?
The only thing that will make me happy is the moment the lethal injection starts pumping through Murphy's veins. And from that moment on, I'm going to be happier than a kid on Christmas.
Diana.
Hello, Claire.
We weren't sure if you were coming.
For a while, neither was I. But I gave it a lot of thought. And here I am. Hello, Rachel.
Hi, Diana. What a wonderful surprise.
Phil?
Diana, how are you?
Could be better. Had a rough trip.
The interstate was bad, wasn't it? Phil's been complaining about it since we got here.
I was wondering what all the screaming and yelling was about. I heard it all the way down the hallway.
Well, it's over now. We've gotten everything off our chests, haven't we, Phil?
For now.
Why don't we all sit down? There's no reason for us to be standing about.
They all take seats. Phil sits in the seat he originally picked in the front row.
So, Claire, how's your mother doing?
She was doing all right last we spoke.
And how's the young man you were seeing? Kyle, right?
Nick. And he's doing well.
I should hope so. When a couple's been together as long as you two, things ought to be going well. Wedding in the future?
I don't know yet.
Well, shouldn't you?
To quote the old Yiddish proverb, we plan, God laughs.
I see. They certainly set up more than enough chairs, didn't they?
Like I tell my students, it's better to have too much than too little. I guess they had the same idea. So, tell us, what have you been up to?
I've been pretty busy. I'm not sure I told you this last we talked, but I've been working as the communication director at my church.
Really? How long have you been doing that?
This will be my second year. They reached out to me when the old director retired. Given everything I did for them when Sam was minister, they figured I'd be interested, and I was.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear it.
You're working at Sam's old church?
I know communication jobs usually taken by this current generation, but I assure you, I'm with it. I know my technology. I know my social media.
No, it's not that. I was just wondering, are you still living in the same area?
Yes, in the same house Sam bought for us over 30 years ago. Why?
Given everything that happened to all of us, in that area, I figured you would have moved years ago.
Whether I'm in the same house or in a new house halfway across the country, what's past is past. The present is where we're at. And in my present, I've got an important job to do, especially with Easter coming up.
I can only imagine how hectic that must be. I find myself overwhelmed just trying to plan Easter dinner. Phil will tell you I'm not much of a cook, but no one else in the family is willing to host. Either I suck it up or we don't get to see anyone.
I was never much of a cook either. I let my neighbor worry about holiday stuff. She's been having me Christmases and Easters for the past couple of years now.
That's nice. What about your sister? What was her name again?
Emma.
Right. I remember her from the trial. How's she doing?
I haven't spoken to her recently. Last I heard, she was very busy with work. You know how it is these days. Everyone's scattered about the place and occupied with their own things.
Mm-hmm.
How's the family on your end?
Family's doing well. Can't complain. Phil will be celebrating 20 years on the force next month.
Really? Congratulations, Phil.
Thank you.
And what about your son? How's he doing?
Luke is doing great. Already looking at colleges, deciding on careers.
Is he planning on wearing a badge like his dad?
Oh no, he was interested in it when he was younger, but he has different interests now.
That's probably for the best. He'll be much better off.
Mm-hmm.
What is that supposed to mean? He'll be much better off.
Well, given the danger of the job.
Oh.
I mean, not to mention all the scandals involving the police recently, allegations that certain departments are racist, and numerous reports of officers being trigger happy.
Here we go.
You have to admit, every time you turn on the news these days, there's another bad incident involving the police.
Because the news is always so reliable, right? The media never rushes to judgment before they get all the facts, right?
I'm just saying, in today's day and age, he's probably better off away from that kind of environment.
I'll be sure to tell him that. Wouldn't want him hanging out with a bunch of trigger-happy racists, right?
I never said all cops are like that, Phil. In fact, I just met a few nice police officers on the front lawn.
There are officers on the front lawn?
Yes. They're making sure everything stays peaceful between the protesters and those people with the hateful signs.
I didn't see any protesters on my way in. They must have just gotten here.
They were saying prayers, and some had candles. Naturally, the police on the other side were getting rowdy, so the police had to keep them in line. Once I saw that there was proper protection, I went over to where the candles were and lit one.
Son of a bitch.
Phil.
There's no need to get angry. Like I said, the cops outside were nice and were doing a great job. Just like I'm sure you do a great job every day.
We're not talking about the police, and we're sure as hell aren't talking about me. As it got closer to tonight, I really began to think. I began to think that if you had the nerve to show up, and if you wised up since the last time I saw you, man, it sickens me to know how right I was.
Nerve to show up?
Mm-hmm.
How dare you? I have just as much right to be here as you.
And that's what I thought when they arrested Murphy and all the details about his victims and their families started coming out. And then you delivered your bullshit victim impact statement about forgiveness and all that crap.
Phil, I really think you should stop before you say something you'll regret.
No, it's all right, Rachel. I'd say we're beyond that now. We were beyond that before I even got here.
You're damned right. Jesus Christ, Diana. I mean, he murdered your own daughter.
I'm fully aware of who he is and what he's done.
Then explain it to me. Explain why you, of all people, would light a candle for him.
When you forgive someone, you're not saying that what they did was right.
So you're saying all this. You're saying after all this time without Melanie, you forgive the monster who killed her?
It hasn't been easy, but yes, I've been able to forgive him.
What Murphy did to you, to me, did to Claire as well as countless others was unforgivable. There's some things in life that you just can't be forgiven.
Not according to God. If someone is truly sorry for what they've done, God will forgive them no matter how truly unforgivable it may seem.
Do you honestly believe that Andrew Murphy is sorry for what he has done? I mean, seriously.
He's been in prison for 10 years. That's 10 years he's had to think about what he's done to all of us. So yes, I do believe he is sorry. I believe in the rehabilitation process. The same process you're supposed to believe in as a police officer.
If some punk steals a glass from a store, then yeah, I believe he can be rehabilitated. But someone like him? No chance in hell.
You'll see when they open that curtain tonight. That is, if you aren't blinded by hatred, like those people with the signs out there.
And that's another thing. People like you can't stand hatred. You're constantly accusing anyone who sees the world as it really is as being hateful. But the sad reality is, you people are the most hateful people of all.
I'm not the one screaming and raving like a lunatic right now. I'm not the one in favor of watching someone die tonight. That sounds pretty hateful to me.
You're honestly going to tell me that murderers aren't hateful? Because that's who you and all those idiots out there are defending. Did Sam ever tell your parish about Moses and the 10 Commandments and all that crap?
We don't need to make any of it personal.
Wasn't one of those commandments, Rachel? What was one of those? Do you remember? Oh yeah, I do. Thou shalt not kill.
So, to prove your point that breaking a certain commandment is wrong, we need to break that same commandment? Honestly, with every statement you make, you sound more and more like Murphy.
Don't you ever compare me to him. Ever!
I see no difference.
Really, Diana? You can't tell the difference between someone like Phil, a police officer, and someone like Andrew Murphy, a murderer, a serial killer? There's a big difference between someone who dedicates their life to preying on innocent and someone who dedicates their life to helping the innocent. And as for Phil's comments, there's nothing criminal about wanting evil men to be held accountable for what they've done.
Amen to that.
So what you're saying is the only way we can hold him accountable is to execute him?
I'm saying there are certain crimes where execution is the only proper penalty.
And who are you to make that kind of judgment?
Given I was abducted, tortured, and nearly killed by the person in question, I'd say I make a pretty good judge. What do you think?
You have to admit, Diana, there are plenty of horrific criminals out there who commit unspeakable acts of evil.
No one is disputing that. What's your point?
Well, don't you think the harsher the crime, the more severe the punishment should be?
Why should we, the taxpayers, people like me and you, pay for someone like him to get a free ride for the rest of his life in prison?
You do realize it costs the taxpayers less money to keep people alive in prison than it does to execute them with the lethal injection, right?
Well, if that's the case, then I don't mind the government taking a little extra out of my pocket for a change.
You're unbelievable. You claim on social media you're against big government, yet you're in favor of a government big and powerful enough to decide who lives and dies. You do realize the hypocrisy of what you're saying, right?
The stuff I've been saying is no more hypocritical than the stuff that you've been saying.
How so?
You're always claiming on social media that they want more government. You know what happens when there is more government? You know what happens when there are more laws, more cops, more racist, trigger-happy cops who dedicate their lives to protecting the innocent. So according to you, big government is good when it comes to protecting the guilty, but big government is bad when it comes to protecting the innocent.
You want to talk about the innocent? Then tell me what you think about innocent people who've been wrongly executed. I mean, judges, jurors, and even police officers are all human. Humans make mistakes. Do you want executions happening when it could affect innocent people?
That is why there need to be concrete evidence before someone is executed. I'm talking forensics, DNA.
Eyewitness testimonies.
Eyewitness testimonies have been noted for being notoriously inaccurate.
I'm sure my eyewitness testimony in this case, which is pretty spot on, Diana.
We're saying that there needs to be definite proof that a person is guilty.
Well, hopefully you'll always be around to make sure there's definite proof.
Wasn't God always willing in killing wicked people in the Bible? It's been a while since I read any of that nonsense, but I remember floods, plagues, fire, brimstone.
Yes, he was. But as you just said, God was doing it. You're not God, Phil, no matter how much you want to be.
That settles it then. I guess we'll just have to wait for your God to step in from now on. But he didn't step in when your daughter needed it most. But I'm sure your God will somehow magically step in from now on.
How about we all just take a breath and calm down?
Do whatever you want. I'm done.
She walks to a chair on the other side of the room. While all eyes are on Diana, Josh King enters the witness room unnoticed. He takes a seat in the chair nearest the exit.
Well, I didn't start this.
Well, you sure as hell finished it. You went way too far with that last comment.
I said what needed to be said. You know it, and I know it.
No, I don't. In fact, the more I stay in this awful place, the more I'm convinced I don't know anything. And we still have... Christ! Half an hour to go. Luke had the right idea of staying home. I never should have come here.
Well, why is that? Because someone's feelings got hurt?
You really are unbelievable.
She approaches Diana and sits next to her.
I tell you, Claire, on days like this, you're not missing anything by being single.
Did Trish believe in God, Phil?
What?
Did she or didn't she?
I mean, she stopped going to church when we were kids, but she always believed. Why?
Because God stepped in for me. Growing up, I didn't believe in him, much less pray to him. But from the moment Murphy first attacked me to the moment law enforcement arrived, I prayed nonstop for him to save me, and he answered my prayers. Now tell me why he did that.
Well, listen, what I said earlier was that...
What you said earlier was the truth. For whatever reason, God decided to step in for someone like me who spent her entire life laughing off his existence. But he decided to step away from people like Trish and Melanie, who spent their entire lives believing in him. For whatever reason, he stepped in for me. And to this day, I still don't know why.
Oh, Claire, come on now. Don't do this to yourself. Not here, not now.
It's not just here and now, Phil. Thoughts like this, well, let's just say they're one of the things that keep me up at night.
No, they shouldn't.
They shouldn't, but they do. I'm just hoping that after tonight's over, they won't anymore. Who is that?
What? I don't know.
You have any idea when he got here?
Probably when Diana and I were. It looks like he's around Luke's age. Isn't that something?
What is?
Well, maybe there's hope for his generation after all. I'm going to go over and introduce myself.
Are you sure that's a good idea? I used to work with kids his age, and given his body language, he seems like he doesn't want to talk to anybody.
Hey, if I walked into a room and heard some idiot defending the animal who killed a member of my family, I wouldn't want to talk to anybody either, but he needs to know that he's not alone.
It's your call.
All right, well, aren't you coming too?
I'm going to sit this one out. I've already done more talking than I care to do.
Suit yourself.
Phil sits next to Josh.
Hey, kid.
Hi.
So how long you been sitting here?
About a minute or so.
Hmm.
Didn't look like I was gonna make it at first. Not sure why I decided to pay the interstate tonight of all nights.
Thank you. That's what I've been saying ever since it got here.
Seems like nobody has any common sense anymore.
You are preaching to the choir, kid. But hey, at least you're here now. You okay?
I'm just anxious.
Pulls out a necklace with a cross on it from inside his shirt and twiddles it.
To tell you the truth, I've never been to one of these things before.
Neither have I. Anyway, it should be starting soon. Once it's midnight, they'll pull back the curtains, and that's when it officially begins. And after that, they'll.
I know what's going to happen. I read about the procedure online.
There are two things that I still don't understand, though. I mean, why do they use sterile needles, and why the hell do they put alcohol swab before they put the injection in? I mean, what the hell's going to happen? Is he going to get a freaking infection right before he dies?
From what I read, sterile needles keep the person administering the injection safe in case the prisoner ever decides to fight back. As for the alcohol, it causes the veins to stand out better.
Huh. I can understand the part about keeping the person administering the needle safe, but the part about the alcohol making the veins stand out more, I mean, hey, I'm sorry, but that's just bullshit. Every time I go to the doctor for blood work, they never get my vein right away. I mean, so I can get poked and probed, but for someone like that, they have to make sure he get the vein right away.
It's just what I read.
He slips the cross back into his shirt.
It's like what I've been saying since this whole nightmare began. And everyone cares more about the rights of the criminal than they do about the rights of the victim. And last I saw this scum, it was at his last appeal 3 years ago. He looked pretty good, believe it or not. Then again, why wouldn't he? I mean, we may take better care of him than we do some of our children.
I guess so.
Oh, my name is Phil, by the way, Phil Harrison.
Josh King.
Good to meet you, Josh. I am surprised it's taken this long.
What do you mean?
Well, I thought that I had met all the family members of his victims by now. But then again, the authorities did think that he was responsible for at least a dozen more murders.
Oh. He didn't kill anyone in my family.
He didn't? Then why did you get invited to this then?
Andrew Murphy is he's my father.
Your father? Your father?
Phil rises. Rachel, Claire, and Diana all follow his lead.
Phil, what's going on?
Well, this kid's, he's Murphy's son.
Phil, Rachel, Claire, and Diana all stare. Josh sits in a chair and before addresses an unseen psychiatrist.
Good afternoon. Before I get started, I wanted to thank you for agreeing to see me on such short notice. Dr. Irving, I haven't been to a psychiatrist in a while, but now that my aunt and I have finally settled into our new place, I felt as if it was important for me to see once again. My old psychiatrist would always tell me how dangerous it was to internalize everything I was feeling and how important it was to give my feelings a voice. I've been feeling a lot lately, so I hope you'll bear with me as I give my feelings a voice and get everything out. I got officially dumped for the first time a few months back, and I'm still having a hard time with that. I understand sooner or later, everyone gets dumped, but as you're going to find out, by the end of this session, I'm not like everyone else. It all started when my girlfriend and I were celebrating our 6-month anniversary one afternoon. Now I know to someone like you, celebrating something like a 6-month anniversary must sound silly. But given the hookup culture out there and given I'm still in high school, lasting 6 months with the same girl didn't sound all that silly to me. We got close that afternoon. So close, I thought I could tell her anything. I hadn't really been honest with her, you see. And when we first started going out, I told her my dad was dead. I didn't know if I could trust her in the beginning, but given how close we got, I figured it'd be best to come clean. I told her everything about my dad that afternoon. When I was done, she said she understood what my dad did would never change her feelings for me. A couple of days later, I started getting weird looks from her friends at school. And a couple of days after that, I started getting weird looks from my own friends. After that, there were the notes in my locker, the nicknames on social media, and then the comments to my face, from being called Murderer Boy to being asked if I actually helped my dad. School became a living hell. The absolute worst was this one morning in English class. That was the class where I sat in front of the guy who my girlfriend eventually dumped me for. Near the end of the period, the teacher asked the class if the ending to this one story we had read was fair. And the guy behind me then leaned forward and whispered, "What would be fair is if I had been murdered instead of the people my dad killed." And next thing I knew, I was spinning around with my fist raised, and he was on the floor with a bloody nose. I blocked out a lot of things from that day, but the one thing that I can't block out, no matter how hard I tried, were the looks that I got from everybody. At that moment, I knew they looked at me the way people must have looked at my dad. In that moment, I found out what my aunt had been trying to protect me from for the past 10 years. After I was suspended and came back to school, things got even worse. Word got out, and even my aunt started to get harassed in town. That was when she decided we needed a fresh start and we moved. We've been in a new place for about a month now, and so far, I've been adjusting to school. There's even a new girl I've been texting. It's something I desperately want to enjoy and have again, but I can't enjoy it just yet. I can't because I'm afraid of what will happen when the truth comes out. I'm afraid of how others will act when they find out. I'm afraid others will automatically assume that because I'm his son, that I'm somehow just like him. my aunt always told me about forgiveness growing up. She said, given our faith, forgiveness was a key component. But for the longest time, I've had trouble forgiving people because they haven't forgiven me. And the thing that hurts me the most is they refuse to forgive me for the things I haven't even done.
Josh has retaken his seat in the room and is surrounded by Phil, Rachel, Claire, and Diana.
Murphy's son? What are you talking about? Andrew Murphy didn't have any children.
If this is some kind of joke.
It's not a joke, I swear.
You better explain it to us, kid. You can't just make a statement like that and leave us hanging.
Okay, let's all give this young man some space.
I'll explain everything. Where would you like me to start?
The beginning's fine. Just how old are you?
15. I'll be 16 this June.
So, 15 years ago, Andrew Murphy was married?
My parents were never married.
I see. I take it you live with your mother then?
I used to. She died a long time ago.
Your dad killed her too?
Phil.
She had a stroke when I was 5. It was right before my dad got arrested and all the stuff started coming out. My mom's sister has been raising me ever since. She even changed my last name to her last name too.
And your mom was positive that Andrew Murphy was your father, like for a fact.
She had him take a DNA test and everything.
And your mother, she went with your dad willingly? I mean, she wasn't forced.
Claire, come on now.
I'm sorry, but this is a lot for me to take in.
Yes, my mom went with my dad willingly. Neither of my parents were ever said it out loud. But when I got to be a certain age, I was able to figure out it was a one-night stand.
And tell us why we didn't see you at the trial or at the appeals. Why haven't we heard about you in the past 10 years?
Because that's what Roy wanted. She didn't want anyone to know about it.
Until tonight, apparently.
Did she bring you here?
She did.
Good, because I'd like to have a few words with her when she gets in here.
She's not coming in.
Why not?
She said driving me here was one thing, but coming inside was another.
Oh, well, let me guess. And instead of coming in here, she's going to spend the night lighting candles in the front lawn, right?
No, my aunt's not going to be lighting any candles for my dad tonight. Trust me.
Then what's she going to do?
She said she's just going to wait for me in the car.
Wait for you in the car?
Yeah, until it's all done.
Well, these types of things are very upsetting. I almost ended up staying in the car myself when I first got here. Anyway, it's very nice to meet you, Josh. I'm Diana Fulton.
She outstretches her hand. He shakes it.
And I'm Rachel Harrison. I'm Phil's wife.
They shake hands. Josh turns to Claire.
If you'll excuse me, I need to send a text to someone.
She crosses to the other side of the room and takes a seat in one of the chairs. Although she pulls out a cell phone, it's obvious she isn't texting anyone.
So, Josh, do you live around here?
No, I live in Los Angeles.
Oh, wow. Must have been a long flight then.
It was, but I was able to get a lot of schoolwork done. Finished all 4 pages of my Romeo and Juliet paper right now before we landed.
I just assigned my classes a 3-page paper on Hamlet. I teach high school English.
I'll take Hamlet over Romeo and Juliet any day.
I'm with you there. Hamlet is more exciting, isn't it? Remember, we saw a production of Hamlet years ago, Phil.
Yeah, I remember we used to see a lot of plays with Trish, too. Now, not so much. I just realized I need to text someone, too.
So, what other works have you been reading in school?
Rachel and Josh continue their conversation while Phil takes a seat next to Claire.
And of all the things I was expecting tonight, this sure as hell wasn't one of them.
Do you really believe everything he said?
Well, the kid's got no reason to lie. Besides, he's got... Never mind.
You were going to say he has Murphy's eyes, weren't you?
You noticed it too?
How could I not? Honestly, how could any of us who sat in that courtroom not notice? The thing I can't believe is that he's supposedly the product of a one-night stand.
Why can't you believe that?
Because one-night stands are nights full of passion and desire between two people. You expect me to believe someone like Andrew Murphy is capable of feeling desire and passion for someone?
Well, the police arrested Murphy after he got home from visiting a hospital, right?
Yeah, what of it?
Well, the kid said his mom had a stroke and that his dad was arrested right after. And we always wondered what Murphy was doing visiting a hospital on that day. I mean, it would make sense he was visiting the kid's mom.
So now you're saying he cared enough about the boy's mother to visit her in the hospital on Christmas Eve?
I mean, it does make sense when you think about it.
No, none of this makes any sense. How could that monster care about anything?
I don't know. I'm not sure as hell like to find out.
They look over at Rachel and Josh, who continue their conversation.
Well, it sounds like you're going to be reading a lot of really great books and plays.
I have this book of plays at home, and a bunch of the plays we're going to be reading in class are in my book. It makes me want to go back and read all of them again.
That's wonderful. I'd love to have some more students like you in my classes. Nowadays, most kids your age are glued to their phones instead of books.
Most kids my age are just glued to their phones, period.
That's the understatement of the year.
Not that talking about books or plays isn't interesting or anything, but if you don't mind my asking, when was the last time you spoke with your father?
Oh, do you mean like face to face or over letters?
Face to face.
I'd say it was on my 12th birthday. My aunt had asked me what I wanted that year, and I told her I wanted to see my dad. I begged and begged, and eventually she said yes. I saw him in this prison, and we talked the way we used to.
Did you have a good relationship with him before your mother died?
I mean, I lived with my mom and all, but I'd still see my dad a lot. Growing up, he'd never miss any of my birthdays. On the last birthday I spent with him before he got arrested, he took my mom and me out to the theme park. That was the last time we were all together like that, before my mom ended up in the hospital anyway. Even after my dad was arrested, he'd never missed my birthday. Every year, no matter where my aunt and I were living, I'd get a card from him.
That means he loves you.
I don't know what it means, to be honest.
Trust me. He wouldn't do that if he didn't. He's still capable of love, regardless of all the things he's done. You watch. When that curtain opens, he's going to tell us, all of us, just how sorry he is.
Oh, would you cut the shit, Diana?
Excuse me, I wasn't talking to you, Claire.
No, you were just talking to your new buddy. I guess everything's okay then, huh? Everything's all rainbows and sunshine now that Murphy's son is here.
Claire, please. Now is not the time.
The perfect time, especially now since all is forgiven according to the two of you.
I never said all was forgiven.
Oh, please. I'd love to have more students like you in my classroom. I guess we're all go out for breakfast afterwards and pretend the past 10 years never happened.
What happened in the past has nothing to do with this child. He's innocent. He's a victim in this as much as you and me.
Right. Because going to a theme park and getting birthday cards is the same thing as being abducted and tortured. God, I wish I was a victim like him.
Why do you wish you were a victim at all?
You know what I mean.
No, I don't. For as long as I've known you, you've been playing the victim card.
Diana, what Claire went through, what all of us went through, isn't something you can just brush off.
I never said that. I'm just saying that there comes a point when you need to leave the past in the past.
Like you've left Melanie's memory in the past?
Claire, now you're crossing the line. Could we please just get through this without being at each other's throats?
You don't think I've tried to leave what Andrew Murphy did to me in the past? Jesus Christ! I've spent every day of the past decade trying to forget, trying to move on. But no matter how hard I try, it's never enough. I've lost everything because of him. My happiness, my security, my relationship, my job.
Your relationship, but I thought you said...
Rachel, remember what we promised?
It's all right, Phil. In case you haven't noticed, I'm at the point where I don't give a damn what anyone thinks. I'm afraid I wasn't completely honest with you and Rachel earlier. You see, Nick wasn't responsible for our relationship falling apart. I was. It all started when I lost my social worker license. I had been checking in with this family, and I had a hunch this father was abusing his son, but I couldn't prove it yet. Then one day I ran into the father in the grocery store parking lot. He smiled at me, taunted me, said no one would ever be able to take his son away. That was when I saw it in his eyes. I saw Andrew Murphy. I saw Andrew Murphy the night he abducted me, and I went into full survival mode. The fight between us got so bad, employees had to separate us and the police were called. The charges were eventually dropped, but the damage was already done. I started drinking after I lost my license. I would wake up with a drink and I'd go to bed with one. And after my first drink in the morning, I would see Andrew Murphy's eyes staring at me in the mirror. And after my last drink at night, I'd see his eyes again. My drinking got so bad. Nick eventually had enough. The night he left me, I saw Andrew Murphy in him too. I see Andrew Murphy everywhere.
She looks at Josh.
Especially in you. So go ahead, Diana. Judge me all you want. That's what you're best at, isn't it? Judging those who don't quite live up to the ridiculous standards you set. Judge me, judge Rachel, judge Phil. It's just curious you don't judge the man who killed your daughter. After all these years, you still care more about the rights of Melanie's murderer than you did about Melanie. You're more willing to get emotional over a murderer than your own child. You care more about defending evil than you do about defending good. God, I never should have come here.
She storms out of the room.
Claire, wait, Claire!
Rachel follows her out of the room. Diana rises, crosses to the opposite side of the room, and sits. Phil stands near Josh.
I never should have come here either.
Then why did you? Deep down, you should have known this kind of stuff was going to happen.
I came because, never mind, you wouldn't understand.
Oh, yeah? Try me.
I came here because he's my dad. No matter what he's done in his life, in the end, he's still my dad.
Look, I get it. We've all had dads, kid. The only difference is most dads like to read or watch sports in their spare time. Yours, on the other hand, well, how did you find out anyway?
Find out what?
The truth about your father. Did your aunt tell you?
I would have loved it if she had, but she didn't. I found out at a sleepover.
At a sleepover?
It was during middle school. A friend invited me over to this big sleepover he was having. We all stayed up super late and were flipping through the channels when one of the guys came across this TV special on serial killers. I was able to keep it together when the narrator announced my dad's name because I thought it had to be another Andrew Murphy. But I started to lose it once pictures of my dad came up. I begged the guys to change the channel, but they wouldn't. By the time the special was done, let's just say I didn't get invited to a whole lot of sleepovers after that.
Yeah, I remember being interviewed for that special. Some powerful stuff on there. Certainly an eye-opener for anyone not familiar with the case. So what did your aunt say when you told her about it? Must have been one hell of a conversation.
When I asked her about the special, she told me everything on it was true, that I shouldn't watch it again.
Well, what else did she say?
That was it.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah? Why?
When you tell your aunt you just found out that your dad was a serial killer, and the only thing she says is, yeah, that's true, and don't watch that special again.
What else could she have said?
I don't know. I mean, but what she said doesn't sound like it was all that comforting.
I'll be sure to tell her before we leave. I'm sure she'll really appreciate it.
That's another thing too. Why is she waiting for you in the car? I understand that she doesn't want to see your dad again, but you mean to tell me she couldn't wait in the hallway for you?
Look, Mr. Harrison, my aunt knows I'm not a little kid anymore, and that I don't need someone to hold my hand and baby me when things get tough. Like she always says, life isn't going to pause whenever I need a minute. What?
Has your aunt ever talked to you about your dad? And when I say talk, I don't mean lecture. I mean, has he ever sat you down and had a thorough conversation with you?
Mom has had a lot to deal with in her life. From my mom dying to my dad going to prison to having to take me in. It hasn't been easy. She can't always be available to talk to me about my feelings and all that crap. If I want to sit down and talk about that kind of stuff, I'll see my doctor.
Doctor? You mean like a shrink?
I mean like a psychiatrist.
You see a psychiatrist?
It's none of your business.
Yeah, take it easy. Okay. I wasn't making fun. I was just asking a question.
And why is that? Why are you suddenly so interested in asking me all these questions?
Well, I just think that. No. I'll leave you be.
You think what? Look, just tell me. It's obvious you've been telling everyone else what you've been thinking all night. You might as well tell me what you're thinking now.
I just think that it is important for you to have someone to talk, for you to have someone to talk to. Talking is important, even if it's talking about something that you don't think is all that important at first. Something like your feelings.
Rachel notices Phil besides Josh.
Everything okay?
Yeah.
He walks back over to his seat. Rachel joins him.
Less than 10 minutes now. Feels like it should have been over hours ago. Are you sure everything's okay?
Yeah. Are you sure that everything's okay given just what happened?
Gestures to Claire.
I guess we'll find out in a minute.
Claire approaches Diana.
Diana? I owe you an apology. For me to blow up like that and say all the terrible things, especially about you and Melanie, it was uncalled for. I'm sorry.
Sorry too. And not just for the things I said about you, but for what happened between you and Nick. From the way you carried on about him last time I saw you, I could tell you really loved him.
I did. Tonight was the first time I told anyone the truth about what really happened between us. Even my own mother doesn't know the real reason why Nick and I split.
You could always tell her, you know.
I know, but then I'd have to admit it was my fault. It's so easy to blame someone else, isn't it? When you blame everyone but yourself, you never had to take responsibility.
I don't know much about that. All I do know is that you're not the first one to say those types of things about me and Melanie.
Diana, please. I wasn't thinking. I was angry.
I'm afraid I haven't been entirely honest either. You see, my sister Emma isn't busy with work. In fact, she's been retired for years. She just wants nothing to do with me. She stopped speaking to me after the trial, after I made my statement about why we should spare Murphy. Emma was super close with Melanie. Whenever Sam and I would drop Melanie off at Emma's for a weekend, Emma would always be the cool aunt. She took Melanie to so many different places, introduced her to so many different things. For Melanie's 21st birthday, Emma vowed to take her to the casino where they'd spend the entire weekend getting drunk and blowing their money away on slots. Of course, 2 weeks before her 21st birthday, that was when Murphy. Emma was after blood after that. In fact, she had to be restrained at the funeral because she was raving so much. She said if she ever got her hands on the man who killed her niece, she'd kill him herself. I saw what hatred did to my sister. I saw how it ate away at her. It was one of the reasons why I said what I did during my statement. From that moment on, even after Murphy was given the death penalty, Emma accused me of spitting on Melanie's grave. She said evil ran amok because people like me were unwilling to acknowledge it. I just think that what you believe in shouldn't change because of circumstance, no matter how bad the circumstance may be. Apparently, no one else seemed to agree with me, not even my own family.
It's not my place to tell you what to believe in. I just want you to know how sorry I am. And not just for everything I said tonight, but for Melanie too. I don't think I ever said this to you out loud, but I'm so sorry you lost her. She deserved better, and so did you.
We all deserved better. And when I say all, I mean all of us.
She gestures to Josh. Claire rises from her seat and slowly approaches him.
Do you mind if I sit here?
Not at all.
She sits down next to Josh.
I'm afraid I forgot to introduce myself earlier.
I know you're Claire Cameron. I've known about you long before tonight. Just like I've known about Phil and Diana long before tonight too. I've done my research on all of you.
I imagine it must have been quite difficult for you to find out all of those things.
Not as difficult as it must have been for all of you to go through them.
Listen, about earlier,
You don't need to apologize.
yes, I do.
If the roles were reversed and someone did to me what my father did to you,
Exactly what your father did. You're not your father, Josh. You may look like him, you may sound like him, but you're not him. And I was wrong to attack you for what he did.
not as wrong as I was for coming here.
You have as much right to be here as the rest of us. I apologize for making you feel otherwise. I hope you can forgive me.
Of course.
Really, just like that.
Believe me, I used to have a lot of trouble forgiving people. And that was until I read the Shakespeare quote in one of my theater classes. It has something to do with God and the way he pardons us.
Was it, I pardon him as God shall pardon me, from Richard II?
Yeah, that's the one.
Thought so. I did that play my freshman year of college.
Josh pulls out the cross from inside his shirt.
Reading that really puts things into perspective for me, especially given my faith.
He slips the cross back into his shirt.
It's funny, isn't it, how something written in a play hundreds of years ago can speak to you more than the people around you?
Theater can do that. I know it did for me with a lot of things. It's impressive you're reading Shakespeare already. Back when I was in high school, I had no idea what the hell he was talking about.
I didn't either for the longest time. That was until I started taking theater classes. I've yet to act in a Shakespeare play though, but I think it would be really cool.
Are you looking to do theater in college?
Not sure. I just know when I'm on stage and that curtain goes up and the lights start pouring down, there's nothing else like it. Are you still laughing?
Oh no, I haven't for years.
Why not? You enjoyed it, didn't you?
I loved it.
Then why not do it again?
I just feel there's a time and a place for everything, and that aspect of my life belongs in the past.
Believe me, there are plenty of things I wish I could keep in the past, but never the things that I enjoyed. You can never have a shortage of good things in your life. Like my doctor always says, good things belong in the present. Bad things belong in the past.
By doctor, do you mean psychiatrist?
I do. I don't see him that often though. Just every now and then. Just on certain days when things aren't. So
Josh, you don't have to explain. I've tried a few psychiatrists myself, but they never really clicked for me. But if they click for you, then by all means keep seeing them. By the sound of things, it seems like they're doing you good.
they are in some ways. There are still some things I don't think I'll ever get over. Like when I realized I used to visit my dad at the same house where he kept you and Mrs. Fulton's daughter. It's just hard to believe that right below the kitchen where we played board games, that was where he kept you. And to this day, certain smells still set me off and make me think of that kitchen. Not to mention,
if we could stop talking about this, that would be great.
Sorry. The only time I really get to talk about my dad is when I see my psychiatrist. He encourages me to let everything out and to keep talking. I need to keep reminding myself I'm not in his office right now. You know, sometimes when I'm with my psychiatrist, I almost feel like I'm back on stage again.
Really? Why is that?
Think about it. You're basically in the middle of a set. Your doctor is your audience, and you're performing a series of monologues. Only the monologues you're reciting aren't Shakespeare or Tennessee Williams. And the part you're playing doesn't go away when you go home and change your clothes. It's a part you're always playing, and most of the time, it's the hardest part you've ever had to play.
What smells set you off? You said certain smells set you off and make you think of your dad's kitchen. What are they?
Coffee. He always kept ground coffee on the counter.
That was the first thing I smelled when I walked into his house that night. For the longest time, I couldn't drink coffee after that. For me, the worst is the smell of dirt. To this day, it sets me off because his basement was covered in it. I tried to have a garden once, but I just couldn't because of all the dirt.
Being afraid all the time is really horrible, isn't it?
It is.
Especially when the person who made you afraid was a person you trusted.
Phil, what you said before was true. When you want time to speed up, it goes by slowly.
When you want time to go by slowly, it speeds up.
He looks over at Josh.
What do you think it's like, Rachel?
What do I think what's like?
Well, knowing the exact moment a member of your family is going to die.
I don't know. You would know better than me. That night you found Trish in the park, you said you knew she was going to die the minute you saw her.
I did. But before I showed up at the park, I had no idea she was even in danger.
What are you getting at?
Well, this kid, he's known his dad was going to die tonight for a long time now. What do you think something like that does to a kid?
I don't know. I've had my fair share of troubled kids in class over the years, but never something like this. Like I tell Luke all the time, you don't know what the other kids in your class are going through.
No. No, you don't.
Diana rises from her seat in the back and takes a seat behind Rachel.
I wanted to sit closer, so he'll have a clear view of me when the curtain opens. Do you think he'll address all of us at once or individually?
We'll be finding out any second now.
Oh, God.
Here we go.
Phil takes Rachel's hand. Phil, Rachel, Claire, Diana, and Josh turn their attention over to Andrew Murphy. After a moment, a prison guard speaks.
Do you have any last words, Mr. Murphy?
I do.
This is it.
I wanted to say one thing to my son, Josh.
Josh rises and walks over to the sheet of glass. With his back to the others, he pulls out the cross from within his shirt and twiddles it.
I let you down, boy. You deserve better than this. You deserve someone who would have been there for you. You deserve better than me. I love you. And I'm sorry.
I love you too, Dad.
He places his hand against the sheet of glass.
Son, you need to sit down.
Josh takes a seat as the sound of the gurney being lowered and rotated is heard.
Wait! He can't be done talking yet.
Diana, you can't be talking now.
But he can't be done. He didn't say anything to any of us. Well, what about Trish? What about Claire? What about Melanie? What about my Melanie? What about my daughter? Say something. Say something!
Shh. The sounds of buttons being pressed fill the witness room. Josh struggles to compose himself throughout the whole ordeal. Diana and Rachel have their eyes glued to the imaginary sheet of glass the entire time. Phil and Claire look down at the floor, but Phil eventually turns his attention over to Josh. Finally, the sound of a flatline on a heart monitor echoes across the room. A physician speaks.
Time of death, 12:09 a.m.
It's all over. After some difficulty, Josh slips the cross back under his shirt.
Well, was it everything you thought it was going to be, Phil?
It's hard to say. I just think it's going to take some time to process, you know. But what about you?
I don't know what to think, to be honest. I'm just glad it's finally over.
She notices Claire is in a trance-like state.
We should check in with everyone before we go.
He follows Rachel over to Claire.
Claire, are you all right?
No, I'm not.
I know seeing him again was surreal, but it's over now. It's all over.
Is it really, though?
Of course it is. I imagine it'll take some time before it completely hits.
Don't get me wrong. Andrew Murphy may be dead, but everything about him, who he was, what he did, I don't think those things will ever die.
We all knew this heading into tonight. We all knew there would always be traces of him here and there.
I just thought tonight was going to be like a final curtain call at a play. But instead, it turned out to be an intermission. I just wanted closure. And right up until that curtain pulled back, I thought I was going to get it.
Just wait until tomorrow when all the news stations start talking about it. That's when it will hit you.
There are only so many tomorrows, Rachel. My father told me that right before he left. And if the past 10 years have taught me anything, it's that you can't spend your life just waiting around for tomorrow to come. Because tomorrow will come eventually, and when it does, you may very well be disappointed.
What are you trying to say?
I'm saying I don't want to spend the rest of my life focusing on tomorrow. I want to spend the rest of my life focusing on today. Now, how I do that has yet to be seen. I could do it by repairing my relationship with my mom, or by repairing my relationship with Nick, or by getting a job I love again. All I know is I have to do it before it's too late.
Well, Claire, if anyone can do it, it's you.
I'm going to leave in a minute. I want to slip out of here before I run into any reporters. But before I go, would you want to exchange cell numbers?
Of course. Put your number in mine, and I'll put my number in yours. I'll admit, I'm not the best texter. Phil's always on my case about it.
I'm not either, but sometimes a simple hi every now and then is more than enough.
They plug their numbers into each other's phones. Phil notices Diana still sitting. She is in a trance-like state. He approaches.
Diana, you okay?
Claire and Rachel put their phones away and listen.
I just can't believe he never said it.
You never said what?
That he was sorry. 10 years, Phil. He had 10 years to think about all the pain and suffering he caused. And he just looked into our eyes and said nothing. Who does something like that?
A man like Andrew Murphy.
He's not a man. Not anymore. At least not to me. The men I've known in my life have sought forgiveness for far less. I never should have come here.
Rachel sits down beside her.
It was important for you to be here tonight, for Melanie's sake.
Weekend before Melanie was killed, she wanted to get together with my husband and me, and my sister too. She wanted all of us to get together. But I convinced her to wait until the following weekend because I wanted to help out some neighboring church event. I saw her the next day and gave her this cross I had bought. She was wearing it the night he took her. Murphy must have thrown it away or something because I have no idea what happened to it. Her cross meant nothing to him, just like her life meant nothing to him. I keep thinking that if I hadn't turned her down her invitation, we could have all had one more day together.
Don't. You had no way of knowing. If any of us had known what the future had in store, we wouldn't be here now.
He murdered Melanie, Phil. He murdered my daughter.
I know. I know.
He murdered her for the hell of it. Just like he murdered Trish. And just like he abducted and tortured Claire. And there are people out there actually praying for his soul. Where were those people when Melanie was begging for her life? She could have used plenty of prayers back then. Oh, God, I just can't believe it.
Maybe they weren't just praying for Murphy. Maybe they were praying for all those who were affected by what happened tonight.
Oh, my heart breaks for that boy. Really, it does. He suffered a lot tonight. That he's in my prayers. But the reason why he suffered in the first place was because of the choices his father made.
Mhm.
His father chose to be a murderer. His father chose to murder my daughter, chose to murder your sister, and chose to abduct Claire. None of us chose any of this. It's because of his choices, and his choices alone, that his son is in this situation now. Punishments shouldn't change just because we find out someone is a parent. In fact, punishments should be more severe for parents who commit crimes because of what their crimes do to their children. Deliver us from evil.
What?
It's one of the last lines of the Lord's Prayer. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. I've been saying that prayer every night since I was a little girl, but I never appreciated the meaning of those lines until now. Evil was delivered from us tonight, Phil. I just wish it had been delivered from us sooner. I didn't realize this earlier. But now it's officially past midnight. And it's my sister Emma's birthday. It's fitting they decided to execute Murphy today of all days. I'll have to tell her that when I call her and wish her happy birthday. She'll have a little extra reason to celebrate. I'm gonna head out now.
I'm going to. We can walk out together.
I'd like that. It'll give us a chance to exchange numbers. Thank you for everything, Rachel. I needed someone like you on a night like tonight.
You're more than welcome.
It was good to see you again, Phil.
Likewise.
Be sure to give Luke my best.
I will. And I'll ask him to say a couple of extra prayers for you.
I appreciate that. You know, I never told you this, but I really wish someone like you had been around the night Melanie was taken. If a police officer like you had been around, she'd still be alive today. The police force is truly lucky to have someone like you on it. Take care of yourself.
They hug.
Take care of yourself too. Same goes for you, Claire.
I will. Goodbye, Phil. I meant what I said all those years ago. Your strength gives me strength, and I'm forever grateful for it.
I'd say you are strong enough on your own now. Stronger than you'll ever realize.
They hug.
Goodbye, Rachel.
Goodbye, Claire. Text me as soon as your flight lands, okay?
I will. Have a safe trip back.
Claire and Rachel hug. Claire and Diana then cross to the other side of the witness room. Just as they are about to exit, Josh rises from his seat and approaches them.
Mrs. Fulton, wait, don't go just yet.
Yes? What is it?
I need to give you something. Something I think belongs to you.
He reaches inside his shirt and pulls out the cross. He takes it off and hands it to her.
Oh my God. Where on earth did you get this?
My dad, he gave it to me when I was a little kid.
Your dad gave it to you? He gave it to you?
I never thought anything of it until I heard what you said to Mr. Harrison. You said Melanie was wearing a cross when she was taken. It's hers, isn't it?
He gave you my daughter's cross? He took it off her neck so he could strangle her. And then when she was dead, he set it aside and gave it to you. My Melanie. My God. My Melanie.
She glares at Josh before she races out of the room. Claire is left standing before Josh.
Like I said before, it's the hardest part I've ever had to play.
Claire puts her hand on his shoulder.
I'm so sorry for everything. Diana, wait. Diana.
Josh collapses into a nearby chair. Phil and Rachel remain standing in place on the other side of the room. All they can do is watch.
That cross he was wearing belonged to Melanie?
It would seem so.
But that cross was a gift. A gift Melanie had gotten from her mother. It was a gift she loved. Luke was right.
About what?
About Andrew Murphy getting off easy? He didn't suffer the way Trish or Melanie did. All that happened was he went to sleep. Luke was spot on.
Well, Luke's a smart kid, Rachel. He's been right about a lot of things.
I just wish all the reporters out there could have seen what just happened with Diana and that cross. Not to mention the fact that he never apologized for any of the horrific things he did to us. The reporters are all probably waiting to interview us. Given the way I'm feeling right now, if one of them starts asking me questions, I may very well answer in a way.
She notices Phil staring at Josh.
Aren't you coming?
Well, why don't you wait for me at the car?
I really think you should leave him alone.
I'll just be a few minutes.
Phil, I've dealt with trouble kids for years. You don't want to say the wrong thing, especially in a situation like this. You don't want to make things worse.
I won't. Please. Please trust me on this, Rachel.
If you're sure.
I'm positive.
Okay. I'll wait for you outside then.
Phil approaches Josh.
What? What do you want?
Just wanted to see if you were okay.
Well, I'm not. And why would you care?
Because I know what it's like to lose a father. I lost mine when I was around your age. And no one should have to go through something like that.
Josh struggles to compose himself. Phil takes a seat beside him.
It's okay. Take a minute to let it out. Do you good. Just let it all out.
Stop your videos.
Rachel
everybody.
addresses a reporter.
Gotta wait. Good evening. My name is Rachel Harrison. I was here tonight for my husband Phil, whose sister Trish was one of Andrew Murphy's victims. Although it's been over 10 years, I still vividly remember the moment when I found out my sister-in-law had been murdered. I had just read my son a story and was getting ready to tuck him in for the night when I got the call from my husband saying his sister had been stabbed to death. When my husband and I told our son his aunt was dead, that was the first time I had heard my child scream since he was a baby. I tried to block out the sound of that scream for many years, but tonight, when I saw Andrew Murphy, I heard that scream again. I ask for all your viewers to remember Trish Harrison as well as Melanie Fulton. In addition to the people Murphy tortured and killed, there were many others who suffered because of his actions. People like my husband, my son, the family members of the other victims, as well as the family members of Murphy himself, who have no idea about the evil acts he committed. I watched Andrew Murphy received the lethal injection a few minutes ago, and although I'm still trying to process everything, I am certain about one thing. I got closure tonight. I got closure on an ordeal that has been tearing people apart from all sides. In a world where it seems like evil runs amok now more than ever, it's important for everyone watching this interview to know that justice still exists. Thank you.
When I found out my dad really was, I got rid of a lot of the things he gave me. But I could never get rid of that cross. To me, that gift showed that maybe there was a part of him, even just a tiny part, that was human. But now that I know where he got it, I know there was never anything human about him.
There was a part of your dad that was human. And that part of him is still in you.
You're just saying that.
No, if you knew me better, you know I don't go around saying stuff just to make people feel better. Listen, every day I run into a lot of bad kids on the streets. Kids represent the very worst part of your generation. I can honestly say that you ain't one of them. In fact, the more I think about it, the more you remind me of my son.
Are you close to him?
Let's just say I could be closer. Anyway, you should take it as a compliment. He's a really great kid.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what my dad did to you. I'm sorry for what he did to your sister. From what I read about Trish, it sounds like she was one of those people who made the world a better place. I gotta get going. My aunt's waiting for me in the car.
He prepares to leave the waiting room when Phil rises.
I'm sorry for you too, kid. It's not right. None of this feels right.
Josh struggles to keep it together. Phil cautiously approaches him and, after much hesitation, offers to pull him in for an embrace. After a moment, Josh accepts the offer. Phil embraces Josh and does his best to comfort him in the ensuing silence.